Because when we make a promise to the people of Kentucky, we see it through. That's the right thing to do.
Hi, it's Rachel. Stay tuned. The Team Kentucky update will start soon.
Our parks have something for everyone. Hiking, history, golf, fishing, boating, caving, watching wildlife, or relaxing by the marina or at the pool. Our state parks are treasures and are truly the finest in the country. And today, we celebrate 100 years of our parks offering unforgettable experiences to families near and far. So to everybody who's joined us today, happy 100th anniversary. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andy, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. We start where we always start, with our booming Kentucky economy. Since the beginning of my administration, we've now announced over 1,100 private sector new location or expansion projects for a record $35 billion in private sector investment and more than 61,000 new Kentucky jobs. Yesterday, I joined Norton Healthcare in Jeffersontown to announce that children are going to have access to the world-class care they deserve close to home. Norton is planning to build one of, if not the largest, pediatric health campuses in the country. The project will likely exceed $1 billion in total investment and create more than 1,000 new jobs at this hospital alone. The campus of care will show our nation and the world what's possible when we commit to treating the whole family the whole time. We also have several companies announcing expansion projects here in the Commonwealth. Commercial Specialty Truck Holdings, a privately held manufacturer of collection and concrete mixture truck bodies, has announced plans to expand operations at the company's headquarters in Cynthiana. This is a $7.5 million investment that will create 50 new full-time Kentucky jobs and bring this great company's total employment up to over 188. Just 9 months ago, I helped them break ground on a $28 million project to locate also in Cynthiana to meet the increased consumer and industry demand. Now, they're expanding their existing facility, which will help this Kentucky-based company further strengthen its manufacturing presence in the Commonwealth. I want to thank the company's leadership for continuing to bet on our Commonwealth, to invest here, and to proudly call this their Kentucky home. Tomorrow, I'll be joining local officials and company leadership from BE&E to break ground on the company's new $16.2 million facility. The Muhlenberg County operation, which will be located in the Paradise Regional Industrial Park, is going to create 250 new Kentucky jobs. This is exciting because this is the first project to locate in that industrial park. The company produces bulk material handling equipment, which is used primarily in the agriculture, lumber, recycling, and biomass-related industries. I want to congratulate BE&E on this amazing milestone and thank them for choosing Kentucky for this location and expansion. I look forward to seeing them grow in the coming years. I'm also excited to share historic news that we first announced yesterday about our thriving tourism industry. Yesterday, I joined state tourism leaders at the Louisville Slugger Museum to announce that 2024 marked a new record year for tourism in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We announced that 2024 saw $14.3 billion in economic impact, supporting 97,394 Kentucky jobs. That's right. We have now secured 3 records in a row. 3 years ago was the best year ever for Kentucky tourism. 2 years ago, then became the best year ever for Kentucky tourism. And we just announced that last year beat both of them and was the best year for Kentucky tourism. That is back to back to back records, which helps each and every community across our Commonwealth. Last year, Kentucky welcomed 80 million travelers from across the world. Those visitors came into our local communities and spent $10.1 billion. That is a 3.8% increase over 2023. That success has reached every corner of the Commonwealth, and lots of communities saw big wins. Jefferson County reached $4.4 billion in economic impact, supporting 28,400 jobs. Fayette County hit $1.7 billion in economic impact, with more than 11,800 jobs. Boone County, $1.4 billion, 6,700 jobs. Hardin County, $370 million, 2,600 jobs. And McCracken County, $320 million in economic impact, supporting over 2,400 jobs. Thank you to everyone in our tourism and our hospitality industries, from our strong bourbon distilleries to our small business owners, to our hotel clerks and staff at our attractions and restaurants. Thank you for welcoming travelers to our new Kentucky home and helping them to create unforgettable memories that hopefully make them not just want to return, but to move here, to start their next business here, to be a part of our way of life. Next, I want to remind everyone that there'll be no Team Kentucky update next Thursday, June 19th. That's because next Thursday we'll be recognizing Juneteenth as an executive branch holiday. This is an important day in our history as Americans, a day where we stand united in acknowledging our past and our nation's greatest injustice, a day where we recognize the collective courage of African Americans who've paved the way for real, meaningful change. And now it's finally recognized in Kentucky because following my executive order last year, we're officially marking Juneteenth as an executive branch holiday for the second time. At a time where others want to make diversity a dirty word, let me be clear. I believe that diversity is always a strength and never a weakness, that we are stronger with more voices and backgrounds at the table, that it makes us better, better as a state and better as a country. On Juneteenth, I hope you'll join me in using your voice for speaking out for what's right. Next, we have some updates from our transportation cabinet. First, I want to warn you about increases in scammers preying on Kentuckians. Scammers are sending fraudulent texts all over the country. I'm getting them, which look like they come from Department for Motor Vehicles or DMVs, but they are scams. Recent scam texts have warned folks about unpaid traffic tickets or violations and threatened to suspend driving privileges or actions if they don't pay. Do not click on any of these texts. Don't click on any of the links. Even if you see KY or Gov in the links, they are fraudulent. The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet does not collect traffic ticket fees or notify customers of violations. Also, be on the alert for texts with odd misspellings or references to the DMV or DOT, which are not the official names we use in the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet or our driver's licensing regional offices. We're taking appropriate steps to have fraudulent websites taken down. Meanwhile, there are some things you can do to help. You can report the scam to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov. You can report it to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. You can also forward the suspicious message to 7726 to alert your mobile provider as well. Now, we also want to share some good news, and that's that more and more Kentuckians are getting their real IDs. Currently, over 39% of Kentuckians, that's 1.43 million, now have real IDs. This is good news as our licensing staff has been working hard to meet demand. And the Transportation Security Administration reports that 93% of those going through checkpoints at Kentucky-based airports are real ID compliant, which is good news. Remember, May 7th was not a deadline to get your real ID. If you don't have it, you can still go in and get it. But keep in mind, you don't have to have it connected to your driver's license. Passports are real IDs. Military IDs are real IDs. Veterans' health cards, and there are some other documents that are real IDs that allow you to fly. If you still need a real ID, you can apply at the 34 driver's licensing regional offices across the state. As of last week, I can now report that 15,403 15-year-olds have gotten their permits. For young drivers or those taking their tests, consider applying for your real ID from the start. It only takes bringing in one more proof of address to get a real ID version. My son Will did it. It was fairly easy. He was already in there. So you can find out more and take a quiz to find out what documentation you need at realidky.gov. I know the wait times at our driver's licensing regional offices have been difficult, but we're going to continue to work to make them more and more convenient. Remember to go to our website and look at ways you can skip the line. That's everything from going to a private provider to get your vision screening, to going in, getting the vision screening, taking a passcode home and doing the rest online, to doing more of it in the office and dropping it off, and then getting an email that has your credentials. There are lots of ways to skip that line and make your experience a little bit easier. Today, I also want to update our families on the steps we're taking to stop the short-sighted and unlawful cuts to AmeriCorps, the nation's largest public service agency, or one of the largest. Last week, several state attorneys general and I secured a preliminary injunction and a legal challenge against the federal government's attempt to dismantle the agency. This means that the federal government must restore funding to our AmeriCorps programs here in Kentucky. This is an agency whose members teach in our schools, who build and repair homes, who provide meals and so much more for Americans across our Commonwealth and across our country. We will continue to fight to secure the funding the state is owed and make sure that Kentucky communities get the services that they rely upon. Also, to our families who rely on federal food assistance, I understand how critical that benefit is. That's why earlier this week, I sent a letter to Kentucky's federal delegation outlining my concerns with the U.S. House's reconciliation bill. The bill is expected to make cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program called SNAP, which more than 600,000 Kentuckians rely on to help in their food budget every month. That's about 13% of our population. Or roughly 1 in every 8 Kentuckians is getting a little bit of help to put enough food on the table for their kids and for their families. SNAP's a lifeline for these individuals who are struggling, who are out there working but not making enough to feed their family. The bill will reduce the number of Kentuckians that receive these benefits by expanding requirements, increasing paperwork, hoping they don't check a box, and then kicking them off a benefit they otherwise qualify for. It also shifts incredible amounts of dollars and costs to state governments. That reconciliation bill not only adds trillions of dollars in national debt, it does. It also will blow a hole in every state budget, and we have to balance our budgets. So you'll have every one of the 50 states whose budget will be knocked out of whack after having had sessions to have that balanced budget, because the federal government will say, no, here's several $100 million of costs that we previously paid that we're going to force on you. I urge our senators and congressmen to consider the impact this legislation might have on our most vulnerable citizens, particularly children and seniors, those with medical conditions or disabilities. And also remember this thought of we, the federal government, pay too much, or you, the state, should do this. You're elected to represent your states. And I hope that what we're always doing is putting our Kentucky families first, whether we're working in a state position or a federal one. Today, I have another update on the ongoing efforts from the severe weather we've experienced thus far this year. We have a good update today regarding the Washington County tornado on the 30th. All patients have been released from the hospital. Now, when you look back at the tornado that hit London and Somerset, there are still 5 patients remaining at UK. 1 is still in critical condition, 1 is in serious condition, and 3 are now in fair conditions. Want to report on disaster recovery centers. First, we currently have 4 disaster recovery centers open in the impacted areas or nearby. That is for the tornado that went primarily through London and Somerset. These, plus many others throughout the states, are the locations that people can go to apply for FEMA aid or receive other assistance. The locations and hours are on our flood and tornado resource page. Please check those sites for up-to-date information. Residents and business owners who sustained losses in the designated counties can also apply for assistance online at disasterassistance.gov by calling FEMA at 800-621-3362 or by using the FEMA app. When we look at the most recent May event, the tornadoes that hit London and Somerset, thus far in individual assistance, more than $1.4 million has been approved, and that same amount has been dispersed. Other needs assistance, $776,000 approved and about the same amount dispersed. We have 309 individuals that the state is managing the shelter of from that event. 93 households are now in travel trailers. About 176 households have transitioned out of our program. That's a good sign that they're finding stable housing. Team Kentucky is working to ensure that storm victims have every resource they need, and that includes putting food on their table. Today is the last day that people working in Caldwell, Laurel, Pulaski, Russell, Trigg, and Union counties can apply for DSNAP, or Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. Fastest way is to call 1-855-306-8959, but you need to do so before 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. An update on debris removal. Laurel County's contractor has collected 13,566 cubic yards of right-of-way debris for reduction and final disposal. And on the city side, the City of London is self-performing debris removal activities within their city limits. In good news this week, our friends at Shop Local Kentucky, who seem to step up after every natural disaster, stopped by with a donation of $150,000 to the Team Kentucky Storm Relief Fund. This Lexington-based company has raised money for storm victims through multiple storms with its popular Kentucky Strong campaign. Thank you to Rick and Joni Painter for using their platform to support Kentuckians in need. If you would like to help by making a monetary donation, the Team Kentucky Storm Relief Fund remains open. So far, it's raised a little more than $1.9 million to help people through the last 3 natural disasters, with donations from 7,128 individuals. This week, we also received donations from Delta Dental, FedPoint Insurance, and Ameriprise Financial, and a $10,000 donation from a private individual. The first priority of this fund is to assist with funeral expenses for those lost in the storms. The first things we do are grieve together, and we don't want any family to have to wait for reimbursement. Those who can, please donate at teamkystormrelieffund.ky.gov. As an update on the 2 previous flooding events, Kentucky State Park is sheltering 127 people at 4 state parks. Jenny Wiley Campground is sheltering 120 people, occupying 43 travel trailers. When we look at the last flood, the April flood, FEMA has now provided more than $22 million in individual assistance to our families, about $9 million in other needs assistance to our families, and the deadline has been extended to July 25th, 2025. When we look at February's flooding. The deadline is now passed for that. More than $46.9 million has been approved in individual assistance. It has been dispersed. And when we look at other needs assistance, right at about $18 million. I want to thank the FEMA workers who helped to process those applications for the February flooding event. We appreciate your service. And finally, for our All-Stars, today we celebrate and honor and recognize a special group of our military veterans whose path to service hasn't always been easy, yet it never stopped them from serving our country to the fullest. Those are our women veterans. Women in Kentucky have officially served in the armed forces for 77 years today. But the truth is, even before that, women were serving our country. In the Commonwealth, we have over 26,000 women veterans with us from all 120 counties. And sadly, we've lost some of these brave women as they've served their country, making the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. And I just want to note that we've lost a serviceman down at Fort Campbell. We're all grieving for that individual's family. We hope that everyone will lift them up in your prayers. I think it was in a training exercise, but no matter how it happens, when we lose someone who is committed to serving our country, I know it hurts that family, but it should hurt us all. So today is Women's Veterans Recognition Day, and I'm naming all of our women's veterans as this week's Team Kentucky All-Stars, and we thank them for their service. With that, we are on a record pace. We're about 20 minutes in. We have one journalist in studio. We have 3 on the line and 1 written submitted question. If it's not otherwise asked, we'll start with Carolina in studio.
Governor, what are your thoughts on the president mobilizing the California Guard and the Marines to deal with the situation in Los Angeles? And then what are your thoughts on the ICE roundups that are happening across the country? The administration says that they're focused on deporting criminals. Videos have shown ICE agents at schools, workplaces, places like that. Do you support the deportation of people with no criminal records?
So the first part of the question is, what do I think of the president federalizing the California National Guard without talking to the governor there and then deploying Marines? First, let me say, whether it's in California or anywhere else, violence is unacceptable, whether it is connected to a protest or not. Vandalism is unacceptable. The destruction of property is unacceptable. And those who break the law doing those things should be prosecuted. But when you look at these protests, the people best able to gauge their size and how to handle them and whether resources are needed is local law enforcement on the ground. This is the Los Angeles Police Department we're talking about. It is one of the largest police forces in the United States that has extensive training. And its chief is telling the country and the world that it doesn't need the assistance of the National Guard to handle what's going on right now. I support local law enforcement. I want to listen to local law enforcement. And from somebody who has had to govern during protests, those that are on the ground are the ones that are in the best place to say what's needed and what could help de-escalate a situation. When I look at what the president has done, it operationally doesn't help because you don't have a unified or a coordinated chain of command. You need communication and strong communication between everybody that's responding to an event like this to try to keep everyone safe. Yet you've got Los Angeles police and maybe any state police over here, and then separately out of Washington, D.C., all the way across the country, you have control over a National Guard that was called up without consultation to the governor and those Marines. Listen, we all want law and order, but you ought to go about it in a way that works. And a president certainly shouldn't call up a state's National Guard without talking to the governor, much less getting their consent to it. The second part of the question was about these ICE raids around the country. I believe that border security is national security, and I believe that illegal immigration is illegal, and our laws have to be enforced. But how you go about enforcing those laws is also important. And people should think about the look and the feel of a military type vehicle pulling up in your neighborhood in the middle of the night and people jumping out in black masks and grabbing someone that could then end up in a detention center not close by, but somewhere around the country very quickly. And that could be an American citizen. That could be somebody who is here legally. We've seen and you've reported on stories where even our local police get an address wrong. And what happens when that happens? So how we carry out our laws, even the laws on immigration, is really important. We should want to do it in a way that gets it right, and that the American people can have faith in, and is not done in a way that strikes fear into those that are here legally and shouldn't have to fear their own deportation, wrongful deportation. All right, Tom Latek. Okay, Ian Hardwick.
Thank you very much, Governor. I'm curious what your thoughts are on President Trump's military parade this Saturday, since several No Kings counter protests have been planned across Kentucky cities, even like Shelbyville and here in Louisville. Are you making any preparations for those?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for acknowledging that the protests planned for this weekend were originally a response to the president's birthday Army parade. And listen, the attempt to say that he didn't pick this one because it's his birthday is just silly. You know, we got a lot of branches of the military, and the one that was picked just happens to be on the president's birthday. At a time when this administration hasn't approved hundreds of millions of dollars in disaster relief for states like mine, spending $100+ million on a birthday parade just ain't right. And that's whether it's a Democrat or Republican. It's not right to spend that amount of money for a spectacle when there are other real needs that are out there. We are following all of the planned protests. Again, I want to say that violence, looting, destruction of property is illegal. Those that would engage in it should be prosecuted, but the peaceful protest is legal and is as American as America is. And those who engage in peaceful protest ought to be able to do it safely. So we are monitoring these events. We'll be activating our emergency operations center just so that we have as much information as we need and can coordinate resources for any area that needs it. I've been in contact with a couple of the locations, but everything we're seeing thus far suggests all of this is going to be peaceful. If you're going out to protest on Saturday, that is your right. Again, make sure it stays peaceful, and I would recommend to everyone wrap it up before dark. We've seen in the past how other groups can come in, especially at night, and turn what was a peaceful protest aimed at change into something that looks very different. And finally, Samantha Valentino.
Thank you, Governor. This morning, Senate Democrats sent a letter to President Trump outlining their concerns over proposed cuts to Medicaid. That letter included a list of rural hospitals considered at risk of closing if these cuts go through. Kentucky had more hospitals on that list than any other state, with 35. So my question is, what are your thoughts on these cuts, and specifically the impacts they would have on Kentuckians and rural Kentuckians at that?
The cuts are devastating. They will cost Kentuckians and Americans their lives, and Congress shouldn't do it, shouldn't pass it. Healthcare is a basic human right, and the part of healthcare that they would cover the people we love the most, our parents and our kids. When you think about booting 16 million people off their healthcare coverage, most of them from Medicaid. Remember, Medicaid covers 50% of Kentucky's kids. Some of those kids would lose coverage. It covers 70% of our seniors' long-term care costs. Those are people's parents and grandparents that would lose their coverage. It'd be devastating to what is a strong rural hospital system. I think about all we've celebrated in the past years, 2 pediatric autism centers in Appalachia where parents are no longer told they should move. You look at so many new clinics opening in areas that have never had them, to where finally people don't have to drive hours to get the health care they need. And think about the fact that our rural hospitals are typically the second largest employer in the county that they're located in after the public school system. Now think about all those jobs being wiped out. And whether you have Medicaid or private coverage, you got to drive several hours just to see the same doctor who had to move to a big city, even though they loved living in your town and spending those dollars that they make in your town. Oh, I mean, it would be terrible for Kentucky. And listen, shame on anybody who's voting for this big, ugly bill. It's going to hurt people. It's going to add trillions of dollars to the national debt. I mean, shame on anybody who would vote for something that would kick 16 million people off health care coverage and gut rural health care. And one written question. With the Trump administration's eye on removing certain DEI-related initiatives in American culture, are you concerned 2025 may be the last official Juneteenth federal holiday? Well, I can tell you it's going to be an executive branch holiday in Kentucky every year that I'm governor. So we're going to make sure that we continue to lift up our voices that says diversity is an asset and never a liability. We believe strongly in Juneteenth in the Commonwealth. And I'd hope that everyone on the federal level would recognize Juneteenth. Talking about the end of slavery isn't some DEI thing. It is an important moment in our history where we talk about the evils of slavery and then recognize the contributions of African Americans throughout our history. That's not creating some specific or special day for one group. It's marking an important moment in our history and reminding ourselves that even in what I believe is the strongest country in the history of the world, we did some things that were wrong. And we've got to make sure that we never move back that way or remotely that way ever again. All right. Thank you all very much. There is no Team Kentucky update next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks.